Interested in investigation and security? Whether you are already a professional or you are in the beginning stages, take all of your classes at the National Investigative Training Academy. Choose from over 200 courses, all written and taught by experts in the field. The National Investigative Training Academy, or NIDA, has offered high-level investigative and security training for over 12 years. Like live classes, NIDA has those too. Sign up today for private investigation and security courses and use brand ambassador code B as in boy, A as in Adam, 2367. Take a look at investigativeacademy.com. You'll find the link in our show notes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Crossing the Tape, the only podcast. That's it.
I don't think that's quite true. But
Well, we're working on it. But we welcome you to the exciting conclusion, part 5 of our Lady of the Dunes series. And we ask that you join myself, Brendan, and my lovely co-host,
Hillary.
And do sign the crime scene log on your way in and enjoy the end of this tale.
Yes. So, up until now, we have not heard of a particular killer named in the Ruth Marie Terry case. There's been a few leads, a few kind of interesting leads about maybe her whereabouts or where to look for her killer, but at this point, there has not been a killer named. Finally, her family got some closure with her identity.
Turns out the Lady of the Dunes is...
Right. However, we don't know who did this awful deed to her. We know it took decades, as mentioned, to link her to that unknown Lady of the Dunes in Provincetown, Massachusetts. There have been implications that her husband may have committed the crime. In our last episode, we discussed some of his behavior and possible links to other crimes.
Yeah, a lot of weird things seem to follow him.
Right. He was also linked to 2 other particularly nefarious situations involving people that went missing.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of puts him into the spotlight for that. And
yeah, it's got to be him.
Right. The murder of a truck driver and the disappearance of that truck driver's girlfriend. Also, one of his wives, she and her daughter went missing. And, at the heart is this one person. I don't believe in coincidences. It makes me kind of go, I wonder what's up with that,
Let's not forget he also stole 10 grand from the family of another wife.
Right, and 10 grand in, what, the 70s?
Right, I think it was earlier than that.
Yeah, may have been earlier. That's quite a bit of money for back then.
Money.
I mean, it's a decent amount now, but let alone back then.
I'll take it if you got it lying around.
So at this point, Moldavan, which was Ruth Marie Terry's husband, has not been named the killer or kidnapper from the truck driver incident, but he is still the prime suspect. So were there other suspects law enforcement looked into? Yes, there were a few other individuals authorities looked into. Many of the leads they had were difficult to confirm. For example, in 1981, investigators were given a tip that a woman who looked like Ruth was seen with the infamous Whitey Bulger. Bulger was known to remove his victims' teeth, and some of Ruth's had been removed, possibly to help conceal her identity. And if you don't know much about Whitey Bulger, he was an Irish mobster that, was in Boston.
Yeah,
so
very powerful.
Right, in Boston, Provincetown, they're not that far. It's a little bit of a drive, but, it's the same vicinity.
If he was going to dump a body, he might go to Provincetown.
Possibly, I don't know.
Why not?
But, it was interesting to me that Whitey Bulger, of all people, came up.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that aspect before until I started digging into all the leads that they did have that were promising.
Mm-hmm.
The lead was never confirmed, though, with Whitey Bulger, and then in 2018, he was murdered in prison.
Yeah.
Another suspect was Tony Costa. He was a serial killer in Massachusetts, but he was quickly eliminated due to the timeline.
All right.
This was because when Ruth's body was found, he was in prison. And I don't think he was connected, so it wasn't like he had somebody else do something. I think he was a serial killer all on his own, not connected like anything else, you know. So it's interesting though, we heard in the last episode there was the tip from Stephen King's son, Joe Hill,
Right.
about, a woman.
An extra in Jaws.
Yeah, that looked like Ruth Marie Terry. And then I think his point was that might be her, or look for people around there because
Right.
part of Jaws was filmed in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's interesting, and then we go from there. And of course, as we mentioned last time, there were no leads with that. It didn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It was a tip. Then we get this one with Whitey Bulger, of all people.
Right.
It's just very interesting to me. And
but then he's whacked before they could
right.
really make any connection.
And then we have this other serial killer in Massachusetts, which, again, I didn't want to get too much into the weeds, but might be something to look into for further episodes.
Right.
But he was in prison, and again, he was a serial killer all by himself. I don't think he had, people working for him.
He didn't have acolytes that he would send out.
So we're still to the point, we know the Lady of the Dunes is Ruth, but we do not know what happened to her. But at this point, to me, the most likely suspect would be the husband.
Right. If only we had a confession.
Right. A man by the name of Hayden Clark confessed in 2004 that he had killed Ruth Marie Terry.
Yeah.
He claimed he had buried evidence in a relative's yard. And so, we hear about false confessions all the time. And unfortunately, this was another false confession. Whether the person's confessing because they want the notoriety for it, the crime, or in this case, Clark was a paranoid schizophrenic, and he wrote a letter of confession about his involvement of Ruth's murder, but it could not be determined that he was connected. And, unfortunately, due to his mental health, and they just didn't have any link to Clark and Ruth Marie. So
he may have convinced himself
right.
that he had some part of this story he read in the papers.
Right. Clark was, however, convicted in 1992 of killing at least 2 other people.
So it wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility.
No, but at this point, police were pretty convinced that this was a false confession.
There's nothing there.
On August 28th of 2023, Moldovan Ruth's husband was officially named her killer. After all this time, the killer was finally named, and we now know what happened to her, who did it.
And that it was obviously.
Right, but the investigators know, and they did what they could. They had very little to work with, and, they did the best to their ability.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is, with what little they had,
right,
they've obviously named him as prime suspect. They're sure it's him. Could it be proven in court? Yeah. Maybe. It might be tough depending on the defense, but
but unfortunately,
he passed in 2002,
so they never got to that point, unfortunately.
Yeah. So almost certainly him, but he's not standing trial for it.
Right. So, after all this time, Ruth Marie Terry's life ended way too quickly. However, it is due to dedicated investigators, patient family members, and DNA technology that she was identified and that her killer was finally named. Yes. So there is something for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, just the fact they were able to confirm that this unknown body found
for
in the
all
70s
that time
was this missing woman.
Yeah.
That alone is incredible.
Of course.
And then to nail down the only way this could have happened was Moldavin was back to his old.
Right, which, I think it's too bad, too, that it was never official that he had anything to do with the truck driver and the girlfriend or the ex-wife and the daughter. It's unfortunate to me that none of that was ever figured out.
Obviously tied up in some very sketchy stuff.
Right.
None of it seemed to stick to this freaking guy.
No, which is unfortunate. So thank you for listening to pretty much our first multiple series.
Yes.
We've never done something like that. It was kind of an experiment. So, what can you expect coming up from Crossing the Tape? Next time, which will be December, we'll bring you a case that is timed perfectly with Christmas.
Yes.
And it'll be an interesting one for sure. And then looking ahead in 2026, you can expect more forensic-oriented cases And we're going to go back to that 2-part episode format.
Yes, we're going to bring you nice, juicy stories broken into 2 very consumable parts.
Right. And we always go with those cases that are a little bit more rare or historical. We are going to try to focus on some more forensic-oriented type. That seems to be what does the best.
But hopefully things you haven't heard before.
Yes, that's what we like to stick with. So thanks for listening. Please stay safe and sign the crime scene log on your way out.
And so long.
Taction USA is your go-to source for crime scene and evidence collection supplies. Taction USA offers quality products all designed and tested by active duty first responders and investigators. With no minimum order, you can order as much or as little as you need. Ordering is fast with no hassle attached. Check out TactionUSA.com today and find the quality and quantity you need when it comes to crime scene and evidence collection supplies. That's TactionUSA.com, or look for the link in our show notes and Facebook posts.